Romantic horror story. 7 Vows with the Ghost Bride. Episode 3. Ritvik stood still in the corridor of the old mansion. Even after shining his flashlight in the direction where Arundhuti had disappeared, he couldn't find anyone. It was as if she had vanished into thin air within a few seconds. Impossible, Ritvik muttered to himself. Maybe there was another room hidden somewhere along the corridor. He slowly walked forward. Just then, tapu, tapu, tapu. It sounded like the soft chime of someone's anklets echoing through the silence. Following the sound, Ritvik reached the end of the corridor. There stood an old wooden door. It was slightly ajar. He slowly pushed it open. The room was dark. Moonlight filtered through the cracks of the window. An old mirror lay on the floor. A wooden swing stood in one corner. And in the middle of the room was an old harmonium. But there was no one inside. Just then a soft humming reached his ears. It was unmistakably Arundhuti's voice. Ritvik quickly turned around. She was standing on the balcony. Bathed in the moonlight, she looked even more beautiful tonight. Her hair danced in the wind. A gentle smile rested on her lips. Slightly annoyed, Ritvik said, "Do you always scare people like this?" Tilting her head, Arundhuti smiled. "Were you scared?" "Not even a little." "You're lying." "How can you tell?" "Your eyes told me." Ritvik couldn't help but laugh. "Can you really read people's eyes?" "Eyes never lie." She said nothing more. The two stood silently beside each other. Rainwater had collected in the garden below, forming a small pond. The moonlight shimmered beautifully upon its surface. Suddenly, Arundhuti asked, "Have you ever been in love with someone?" The question caught Ritvik off guard. "I never had the time. I was always busy with work." "Then the girl who marries you someday will be very fortunate." Ritvik smiled faintly. "So you're predicting the future that easily?" Arundhuti looked at him. "Not every future can be seen, but some can be felt." This time, Ritvik stepped a little closer. "And you? What about me? Have you ever loved someone?" The smile on Arundhuti's face slowly faded. After remaining silent for a long moment, she softly replied, "Yes." Ritvik waited. But she said nothing more. She simply kept staring into the distant darkness. In a gentle voice, Ritvik asked, "And then?" Arundhuti smiled faintly. "Not every story has a beautiful ending, Ritvik." There was such deep sorrow in her voice that Ritvik suddenly felt his heart grow heavy. He quietly said, "Sometimes, even an unfinished story can begin again." Arundhuti looked straight into his eyes. For a few silent moments. Then she softly asked, "Do you always say such beautiful things?" Ritvik smiled and shook his head. "No, only to the people I truly feel like saying them to." A faint blush appeared on Arundhuti's cheeks. She turned her face away. The wind blew strands of her hair across her face. Gently, Ritvik said, "Can I tell you something?" "Go ahead." "When you smile, this old mansion itself feels alive." Arundhuti gazed at him in silence. Her eyes sparkled with tears. Yet within those tears was an indescribable happiness. Slowly she whispered, "After so many years, someone finally complimented my smile." Ritvik jokingly replied, "Then everyone else must have been blind." Arundhuti burst into laughter. The sound of her laughter echoed through the silent night like the ringing of delicate bells. Just then, a violent gust of wind swept across the mansion. Every lamp in the garden went out at once. Somewhere inside the mansion, The sound of something heavy crashing to the floor echoed through the darkness. Emranalini's face turned pale in an instant. She whispered, "They've awakened." Ritvik looked at her in surprise. "They? Who are they?" Emranalini didn't answer. Suddenly, she grabbed Ritvik's hand tightly. Ritvik was startled. Her hand was as cold as ice. Yet strangely, despite that freezing touch, an overwhelming sense of peace settled deep within his heart. In a trembling voice, Emranalini said, "No matter what you see tonight, don't let go of my hand." Looking into her eyes, Ritvik smiled softly. "Ever since I first saw you, I haven't wanted to be away from you." Hearing those words, Emranalini's eyes filled with tears. Very softly, she whispered, "Those exact words someone else said to me 30 years ago." Ritvik stared at her in astonishment. Before he could ask another question, in the distant dark corridor, a blazing flame suddenly flared up for a brief moment. And standing within that fire was the shadow of a groom. Slowly, he began walking toward them. To be continued.